everyone, me again. So today, another overview of a military surplus firearm that's currently on the market. Some people say it's a bit of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I'm not sure whether that's true. We'll kind of discuss what I mean in a second. This, of course, is a French Mac Model 1950 pistol. For a long time, these were very rare in the United States. Even though they were produced by the hundreds of thousands, they never were imported commercially into the US for sale. The very few that were ever in the country were all Vietnam bringbacks. The French used these apparently quite extensively in their misadventures in Indochina. As such, they did end up in the hands of the Vietnamese, and consequently, some did make it back to the United States by GIs returning home. They were never sold, and so that was about all that was available, at least until now. Currently, they're being imported by Navy Arms, who is selling them through the Old West Scrounger website. There's a smaller retailer called Langara Arms, which I've highlighted in a previous video. They've been carrying these as well. So if you don't know what this is, essentially this would have been the French military standard issue pistol throughout the Cold War, and from what I understand, they might even still be in use today, although in very secondary type roles. Uh, Leading up until World War II, the French never were quite able to standardize on a single pistol design. They had, two variations of a 1935 pistol. They were using MAB pistols. They still had French rubies in service. They had their 8mm revolver. Something like, all in all, 9 different handguns in 5 different calibers. After World War II ended, they decided, enough of that nonsense. We're going to standardize on a 9mm design. This is what they came up with. It's essentially largely based on their old 1935 pistol design, but scaled up for 9mm. Mechanically, these are largely copies of the 1911. They've got the same tilting barrel design with the little swinging link. They are simplified in some ways. For example, there is no separate barrel bushing. The guide rod is actually captive. Kind of a nice little simplification. It also features a modular hammer assembly that all comes out as one piece, rather reminiscent of the Tokarev. This is a feature that was inherited from the 1935 design, which that one may have derived from the Tokarev. So it sort of undercuts the idea that the French copy no one and no one copies the French. However, there are some uniquely French elements to this pistol, perhaps most notably or controversially, this safety. There's a couple of reasons why this safety is generally not well liked. By the way, up is safe, down is fire. It's this lever here. So firstly, the way it works is it just prevents the firing pin from being struck, but you can still absolutely pull the trigger. The hammer will fall. It just won't strike the firing pin. That's really all that it does. Not a good design in my opinion, nor really in the opinion of most anyone else. The other reason why this safety isn't liked is that it's actually fairly easy to inadvertently activate the safety when racking the slide. So some people have argued that it's actually intentional, that the French had protocol for this or doctrine. It was supposed to work this way. I don't know whether or not that's true, but today it's certainly seen as more of a problem. Other than that, it's a very solidly made pistol. It's not extremely refined. For example, you could probably see some machine marks over here, but very solid, very comfortable. It has a very large grip, so you can definitely get kind of good control of it and so forth. The reason the grip is so long is it has a single stack magazine that's a 9mm and a 9 round capacity, which results in a relatively long grip. It does drop free, by the way, as you just saw. It also features a magazine disconnect, so without the magazine in there, nothing happens when you pull the trigger. It's by the standards of 1950, a completely adequate firearm. Of course, by today's standards, it is rather dated, but overall, really a fairly nice, comfortable, solid, well-made pistol. In terms of condition, these are in relatively nice shape. Of course, we do see some finish loss in the high spots, like around here, here as well, but overall, really not too bad. The bore on this one is pristine. It seems to be that way for pretty much every other example that I've seen. Both Old West Scrounger and Langara Arms are selling these as like individual listings, so it's not luck of the draw. You know exactly what you're getting as far as which pistol you're buying, so no surprises. Kind of nice in that regard. The import mark, by the way, is right here. Let me see if I can get it to focus. Right there at the bottom of the grip. Very nice and discreet, probably one of the more Nice and sweet examples that I've ever seen as far as import mark location, especially when you put in the magazine, it basically disappears. Nicely done on that front. These also do include the holster. They ship with that, and a lanyard, as well as a cleaning rod. So kind of nice. It's a little bit reminiscent of kind of the golden age of surplus when it was actually common to get a surplus firearm that included all the original bells and whistles. You don't see that too often anymore. These days, you might get the gun plus a magazine, and sometimes not even that. So kind of nice. What's not so reminiscent of the golden age of surplus is the cost. These are relatively expensive pistols, and so for something that's relatively niche, I don't know that I would recommend this necessarily to beginning collectors. Uh, for the cost of one of these pistols, you could easily get like a really nice example of an Enfield, plus a nice example of like a Mosin, and a nice example of a Carcano, and still have some money left over for ammo. Like I said, all for the cost of just this one pistol. So if you're just getting started, that's probably the more sensible route to take. But if you already have all those other things, you want something a little next level, something that virtually no one else will have, this is definitely a very solid option to consider. I don't know how big this batch actually is. From what I gather, uh, from what I would estimate, just based on what I've seen, probably a few dozen, maybe something in the low hundreds. And once they're gone, I assume they're gone. So definitely worth looking into. I don't know that I have too much else left to say on it. That's kind of it, I suppose. And so, of course, thank you for watching, as always.